Yes guys, what's happening? I'm Sai, welcome back to my channel, and today's video is one of them I'm quite looking forward to discussing, to be honest with you, because it's a really fascinating tactical conversation. It's something that kind of will develop naturally, I believe, and probably a little bit under the surface of Cardiff City right now, but honestly I don't think enough people are talking about it or realise quite how good it could be. Maybe. But let's talk about it, because while everyone is understandably focused on Cardiff City and Ruben Colwell in the 10 as the face of Barry Murphy's side, absolutely, there's another player who's quietly developing around him who may actually give Cardiff a completely different tactical interpretation and option in that number 10 spot. And now that number 10 role, or that player, is Cian Ashford. Now, straight away, before people take this out of context, this isn't about, oh, Ruben's not good enough, we need someone different. Far from it. In the Championship, you need options. You need players who can do different things for different games. Ruben is one of Cardiff's better players. He's one of the highest ceiling talents for the club. Now, arguably, he's the most naturally suited to the attacking side of BBM's possession-based football. But football evolves all the time. Modern football is less about having 11 fixed starters, and it's more about having as many tactical weapons on the bench and in the squad as you can for different situations, different profiles, different rhythms, different ways to break down the opposition, different ways to manage situations. And honestly, this is the kind of tactical discussion that I really enjoy. So, of course, I'm going to love diving deep into this on the channel, because there's nothing better than that. Because for me, Cian Ashford is mostly featured, well, he has featured mostly wide for the first team. He did have a little stint in the number 10 for Omar Risa, I believe. But it's generally he's been on the right or the left. But that's never really been his natural position. That's not his position. Cian Ashford grew up as a central attacking player, a floating 10, a link player, a second striker, a connective attacking player. The wing role is more of an adaptation to help him with an adaptation to senior football, understandably. Under Barry Murphy, you can absolutely start seeing some hints that it might be something tactically different brewing. He drifts inside, he creates room for others, he finds himself in that pocket a lot. Now, will dislodging Ruben Colwell from the 10 be, as the first choice 10, be easy? Of course not. In fact, right now, I'd say Ruben's going to be the first choice 10. I think that's pretty clear. But what I do think is becoming increasingly realistic is that Ashford has a genuine alternative role as a 10, depending on the situation. And that's what I think we're really going to explore today, is the tactical differences between the two, the stylistic contrasts, the stats, the football IQ of both, the game situations that may suit each player, and why this could actually become a really important tool for Barry Murphy, and why it might be a really interesting positional battle within the squad over the next 12 months. Now, before we really dive into the tactical side of this video, I think it's important we probably talk about Cian Ashford, the player, first. And I think this, sometimes with academy lads, especially local lads, supporters can accidentally skip over some parts of their story because they've watched them develop gradually over the years. But when you actually take a step back and you look at Cian Ashford's pathway, it's a really impressive rise. And honestly, it's one that says quite a lot about his mentality as well, because Cian Ashford isn't someone who suddenly just appeared this season. Ashford was born in Pontypridd. He came through the academy setup from a young age, quickly became regarded internally as one of the most technically intelligent footballers in his age group. And interestingly, even in that early youth development, coaches often viewed him less as an out-and-out winger and more as a number 10, second striker, connective attacking player. A player who drifted into the pockets, who linked the play, scored goals, combined centrally, and found that space pretty instinctively. And I think that's some important context for this video, because I think people sometimes incorrectly label him as a wide player, because that's where he's initially broken in senior football. But throughout the large periods of his academy journey, particularly in the 18s, the 21s, where he's really cutting his teeth in football. He's played centrally as a 10, an attacking midfielder, whatever you want to call it, as an inside forward, drifting into those central zones. Now, physically, he wasn't always the biggest player. He wasn't overpowering his opposition in youth football. He's not a monster who's dominating games athletically, but instead of a lot of his progression came through football intelligence, through his movement, his technical security, and his understanding of space, which honestly, when you think about it, makes total sense when you watch him under Barry Murphy and why the gaffer likes him so much. Because the things that BBM values most are the exact traits that Cian Ashford has developed through his journey to the first team. Now, Ashford continued progressing through the Cardiff age groups, eventually became one of the standout attacking players in the 21s. And again, if you regularly switch or watch the 21s, you constantly see these flashes of a player we're beginning to see now. Those quick combinations, the intelligent movement, the pressing, direct running, the drifting from wide to central or vice versa, and receiving the ball through the lines, carrying the ball aggressively through transitions. He's always looked like a pretty modern attacker. He's definitely not rigid or static. He's very fluid. And eventually, Cardiff rewarded that development with his first professional contract. Now, that is a moment which is always massive for academy players and their families, because it's the point where the potential becomes a bit more of a direct pathway. And to Cian Ashford's credit, he is not stagnated after signing that first deal. He kicked on, made his first team debut. A lot of young players struggle in that transition period between academy football into senior football. But Cian has gradually kept developing, more importantly, kept performing. But also difficult for him is he had different managers. Different managers see different things, so that can be difficult. And the previous setups, especially during his early senior appearances, he was often used wide because managers valued his work rate and his energy and his directness. He's an honest player, he'll help at fullback, and also allows him to adapt to men's football, the intensity of the Championship and the EFL and League One. But what made sense at the time, but now under Barry Murphy, it might be the right time for the next stage of his evolution. BBM's system is heavily based around rotations, positional intelligence, pressing structures, and combination play, spatial awareness. Suddenly, Cian's natural profile starts to make a lot more sense if you move him a bit more centrally. And now, hugely important moment in Cian Ashford's story came this season just gone, when Cardiff tied him down to a new long-term contract. Now, honestly, that may end up being viewed as a really smart piece of business from the football club. There's been interest from Leeds, there's been interest from Sheffield United along the way, serious interest. And the club have turned it away, and are now with a new deal. It's an exciting period for the player and for the club. Young Welsh attackers with athleticism and technical quality, tactical flexibility, they're very coachable. They are becoming very valuable assets for the football club. Very quickly in modern football as well. So especially when you're homegrown, when you have a manager that you fit stylistically. And I think the new deal was a clear sign that Cardiff internally believes that Cian Ashford could become a real important player of this next era of Cardiff City, particularly under Barry Murphy. He's not just a squad filler, he's an academy success story who's made it to the first team and produced in the first team. An actual important tactical piece of the squad. Now, honestly, when you look at the way his game is evolving, you can absolutely understand why. Now, first things first, I want to be clear about something, and I think a lot of casual fans misunderstand Cian Ashford. This guy, he's not a traditional winger, and the role has largely been circumstance, letting him adapt to first team football. When he broke through the senior football team and Cardiff needed energy and intensity and direct running in the wide areas, they needed work rate, he was there. Now, tactically, putting a young attacking forward in a wide position, it helps them adapt. It simplifies their responsibilities, stay high, stretch the pitch, protect the fullback, attack the space, press aggressively, carry the ball. But if you've watched Cian properly through his academy years, especially those 18-21s, you'll constantly see him in those central areas, receiving between the lines, rotating into the half space, linking the play, driving through the middle and combining around the box. Even if he started wide, his natural instinct is to come inside. And honestly, that's kind of the profile which the manager likes. The one thing you notice about Cian is his football intelligence. I've said it before. He's got a really high football IQ. It's not just about his technical ability or his athleticism, but his understanding of space for himself and for others is key. You watch him under BBM already, and there's clear evidence that not only he understands things like pressing triggers and positional rotations and overloads and supporting angles, where to drift, when to stay high, when to release the ball quickly, but he also does it without having to think about it a lot of the time, because it's his natural football IQ. Now, those are very big traits in a positional football system, which is so common in modern football. And that's why I think this conversation isn't too far-fetched. And people might think, well, let's talk about Ruben. Now, realistically, this is still Ruben's position to lose, most honest, if we're being honest with ourselves. That 25-26 season showed how important he is to his team when he's playing week in, week out. Ruben finished the campaign with 8 goals, 6 assists. He created 67 chances across the season, 134 touches in the opposition box, and he averaged 7.38 on FootMob throughout the season out of 10. They're genuinely top creative numbers, especially when you consider his injury, when you consider Cardiff often rotated personnel around him. But what really, really stood out for Ruben wasn't just the production, but it was his profile. Ruben's a controlling creator. He manipulates games as much as he manipulates the ball. You look at 906 successful passes at an 83% passing accuracy, and that tells you he's heavily involved in the structure. He's not just waiting for moments, he's trying to dictate them. He's trying to make things happen. And then you add in 59 accurate long balls at 70%, 81 shots, over 1,600 touches, 124 ball recoveries. And suddenly you realise how complete his role under Brian Barry Murphy is. He wasn't just creating, he was orchestrating everything. Tactically, that matters a huge deal, because Brian Barry Murphy's number 10 role isn't really an old school luxury playmaker role. He's a hybrid controller. He wants his 10 to receive the ball under pressure. He wants to rotate in the midfield, support build-up, counter-press, create overloads, contribute creatively. It's a lot when you break it all down, and Ruben's technical profile suits it. At his best, Ruben gives Cardiff control through his creativity. That's probably the best way to describe him. But, and here's where I think the Ashford discussion is very interesting. Stylistically, Cian offers almost the opposite interpretation of the same role. Where Ruben controls games, Cian's looking to accelerate it. And that difference could become hugely important depending on the opposition that Cardiff City face. Stylistically, Ashford's numbers look modest on paper, but he's played different positions. So these are from League One season: 4 goals, 3 assists, created 26 chances, 42 successful dribbles, 117 duels won, 107 recoveries. And that, as I said, the context matters because he played that season wide, left or right. He wasn't in the central area, so their stats are going to be different. But he wasn't getting constant touches between the lines like Ruben was. And despite that, there are some really interesting indicators of his profile. You first look at his passing accuracy, 87.4%. That's exceptionally clean for a young, wide attacker. It means he doesn't give the ball away very often, especially one who's receiving the ball under pressure from a fullback. He's carrying the ball aggressively. So that immediately tells you something important. He doesn't panic in possession. And secondly, those 42 successful dribbles at a 45% success rate, that's higher than Ruben's dribbles success rate. But then who attempts more dribbles? Now, Ruben attempts more creative actions centrally. Ashford's directness stands out. And then perhaps the interesting stat is the fouls won. 34 fouls run, won by Cian, that's double what Ruben wins. Why does it matter? Because it reflects aggression, I can't say the bloody word, verticality, direct running. Defenders don't foul passive players. But I also think, as we saw with Omari Kellyman, sometimes if you're a bit more slight, you tend to get the fouls more than if you're big. When you're big, the ref seems to tell you to get up a bit more. This is where tactically I think Cian becomes a real interesting option at number 10. Unlike Ruben, Ashford looks naturally transition orientated. He wants to drive the game forward quickly. Ruben will want maybe a bit more touches. Now let's properly break them down, tactical situations which may suit both players, because this is where this discussion becomes really important. So when Ruben suits the number 10 role, I think, let's say Cardiff are playing at home against a deep block, maybe a team sitting in like a 5-4-1 or a 4-5-1, very compact, very narrow, very passive. In those games, Ruben's probably a better option. Why? Because Ruben thrives in a slightly slower possession environment. He's more physical. He can manipulate tight spaces, receive under pressure and take a bang. But he can slow the game down or speed it up depending on what he needs to do. He can draw defenders out. He can play disguised passes. Those matches become a bit of a chess match until you get the breakthrough. Ruben's tactical intelligence will become invaluable in that situation, especially against low blocks, possession-heavy teams giving Cardiff the ball but not really doing anything themselves. Teams defending narrowly in the central areas, again, probably better with Ruben. His ability to create subtle movements becomes very, very big. You look at 67 chances created, 9 big chances created, 134 box touches. He's done that predominantly against low blocks, and that's a player who's heavily involved in a settled attacking structure. Ruben helps Cardiff sustain the pressure. He keeps the attacks alive. And because he's physical and he's tall and he's technically secure, he helps Cardiff resist transitions when they lose the ball with his counter-pressing. He almost is like a bit of a pressure absorber. But against weaker League One teams, Ruben probably is against weaker teams who are going to sit back, Ruben's probably the better option. So when does Cian maybe be more suited to the role? And I think as you flip it and imagine Cardiff are away against the home side who are pressing aggressively. It's quite chaotic. Transitions are open, high intensity. And then suddenly Cian becomes very interesting because his game is more vertical, more explosive, and it's more transition heavy. One thing which Cian does exceptionally well is attack disorganized spaces. Against high defensive lines, he's going to be so dangerous. Very dangerous, because you look at it, his dribble numbers, his fouls won, his duel success, his recoveries of the ball, they're all high. There's clear evidence of a player comfortable in physical and transitional environments. And importantly, he presses really aggressively, as does Ruben. But what is important there is whichever one plays, you don't lose anything from the press. The number 10 under Brian Barry Murphy is very aggressive presser. And it's a role that you do take some kicks, and you need to have repeated sprints. You need to be repeatedly intense and recovery speed and athleticism, all of which both have. Ashford arguably suits that role quite naturally. Tactically, there may be some games where BBM values intensity over pure creativity, especially away from home, especially against aggressive pressing teams or in transition heavy matches. And here's another really interesting possibility. Could BBM get them both together in a central area? Honestly, I think there's a chance. You could see games where Ruben operates a little bit deeper and Ashford goes into the 10 and attacks the spaces a bit more aggressively. That balance could work in certain games. But they've played together, they know each other a long time. Ruben naturally can slow and manipulate the tempo, while Ashford injects that bit of chaos and that bit of movement. There's a real modern attacking combination there. BBM system often relies on variation within his own structure. He's got a very set way of playing. He's got a very set philosophy, but he does adapt and he is flexible. Different profiles occupying similar zones is something which would interest him, I'd imagine. Not clones of each other. He doesn't want 22 of the same player. He needs variety, flexibility. He needs contrast. And honestly, this might be where Cardiff become a bit dangerous unexpectedly. Because suddenly opponents they can't just prepare for just Ruben. They might have to face different types of number 10s. They may face Ruben's control. They may face Cian Ashford's aggressiveness with that technical ability. Or they may face both together. That unpredictability matters massively. It's a flexibility that the manager needs in the Championship if he's going to be successful. And I think this is important. Ruben probably still has a higher ceiling to a certain degree, certainly from a creative point of view. Technically, he's elite. There are things that Ruben can do that very few players in the EFL can replicate. But Cian Ashford's route is becoming very interesting. He's so technically good. His football IQ is unbelievable. And I think if he's given the opportunity in the middle at times, I think he will show just how good a player he is. His movement, his pressing, his intensity, his tactical discipline, his vertical movement, his adaptability in tight situations. We'll see it all. Modern football is increasingly about having attackers who are multifunctional. They can play all across the line. They can play in different positions. Ashford is definitely one of them. And especially mentally, you can tell the coaches trust him, but you can also tell that he'll do any job he's required to do for the team. And I think BBM's trust is massive in his squad. I don't think he's going to want a huge squad again. So having players who are versatile but he trusts is going to be a big, big plus. One thing I don't want Cardiff supporters to do here is create a division between the two players. It's not about that. This isn't about Ruben or Ashford. This is a reality. In a modern squad, you need multiple options. You need multiple profiles for different positions. All the best teams in Europe have that. Different players exist for different game states, different opponents, different pressing structures, different transitional demands. Like there's so much different things that come into tactics that you need to be able to roll with the punches and change. That tactical flexibility across a season wins you a lot of points. And sometimes you need control, and sometimes you need a bit of chaos. Sometimes you need to slow things down, and sometimes you need to go balls to the wall quick. Sometimes you need to attack the space. Sometimes you just need to keep hold of the ball. Cardiff potentially have two fantastic options in that number 10 area that could really change how they approach certain teams and certain tactical conundrums in a game. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. It's going to be an interesting one because I don't think everyone will agree, but I really think that this is going to happen at some point, and I think tactically is a real big tool for Brian Barry Murphy. But you let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. There's going to be some more videos coming on this channel as we go into the World Cup. We're going to be doing daily stuff on the World Cup here, so make sure you do. And if you want your purely just Cardiff City fix day in, day out, then go over to Cardiff City World. We had a new episode of the Blueprint coming out today, as well as Evan live tonight. And for members of all the channels, 7 p.m. on Monday, we have a very special members show. I'll be joined by Kieran Maguire. We'll be talking Cardiff City's finances in depth, FFP, the financial situation, what we can and can't do. That will be live for members at 7 p.m. on Monday. It will not be live on the main channel. It will only be live on the members section, and then it'll be released at a later date to the rest. Thank you so much for the support as always. If you want to join, patreon.com/AcePodcastNation, or you can join on Cardiff City World's YouTube channel by going to the members tab and hitting join. So yeah, keep the faith, and I'll see you in the next one. Nice one.
This channel is powered by an incredible membership community on Cardiff City World and patreon.com/AcePodcastNation. Becoming a member unlocks exclusive rewards from early access to live event tickets, bonus content, and even the occasional inside transfer scoop when we get it. But more importantly, it allows us to bring you top quality Cardiff City content 7 days a week. Across those 7 days, we're talking match previews, exclusive interviews, instant match reactions, the breakdown podcast, tactical deep dives, the spotlight series, Bluebirds Rewind, Academy Focus, and just so much more. Led by myself, backed by an army of passionate Cardiff City fans, this is content created by fans for fans, balanced, professional, and 100% all about the club we all love. If you enjoy what we do, then join the community today and support what we are doing as we help to keep Cardiff City World flying high.